Most players start learning to improvise with the traditional scale chord approach. Unfortunately, a great many of these folks didn't have a lot of success because they just couldn't find the bebop in all of those scales. JazzEveryone offers an approach that helps you start playing some real jazz right away with those chords and scales. A typical scale chord approach usually starts with a major scale. First, you learn how it is formed, how it sounds, and how the notes in the scale are identified by letters or numbers. Then, you learn how chords are formed, identified with Roman numerals, and how they sound on certain important notes in the scale, like the second, the sixth, the fifth, and the root of the scale. Next, a tune like Perdido may be selected for improvisation. You'll probably learn the melody first and then how to jazz it up. You may well then be directed to a Jamie Aebersold book with chords and scales and a play-along soundtrack for Perdido that will look and sound like this when you play it. Now you'll be given a few ideas about how to start improvising by using certain notes in the scale or chord that create simple melodies and sound good. Then someone will play the track and you'll start improvising. If you have some good musical instincts, you'll probably be able to play something that sounds okay. The real problem starts when you have unusual chord movement, key changes, or certain chords have been altered. And I didn't mention that a great many players in the school jazz program start improvising with the blues scale. Now that usually works for everyone, but unfortunately they never get much beyond the blues scale. Another part of the process I didn't mention is that most good players learn from listening to Bird, Dizzy, Miles, Clifford, Bud, and the rest of the great players and what they played on Perdido. That doesn't come out of a book. So, that's pretty much the story of how most students are introduced to jazz improvisation by a private teacher, a friend, or in a school jazz program. Now, there's nothing wrong with this traditional approach. In fact, if you're going to be a really top-flight player, you need this background. However, for this process to be effective, you're going to need a good teacher, spend enough time in the shed, and have some basic music talent. Sadly, that combination is the exception rather than the rule. Well, here's some good news. The JazzEveryone language system makes it a lot easier to hear and find the basic jazz vocabulary in these scales and chords. My system starts with the whole steps moving through the tonal centers around the cycle of fourths and fifths. When these little two-note melodies are combined and played through the changes, they form a GPS system through the chord changes. That makes it easy for you to hear and remember exactly where that bebop is. Now, I'm going to show you how one of the 12 notes in Western music can become a tonal center that results in the concept of tonality. To help you understand this system, I will divide all 12 notes equally. This may be done in two ways. The first is to divide all 12 notes chromatically or by half steps. As you go up or down the chromatic scale, your ear never definitively establishes any one note as the most important note. Therefore, a tonal center is never established. Now, when the 12 notes are divided by fourths or fifths, As you play from one note to another, the note that's played on the downbeat, a fourth above or a fifth below, becomes the tonal center. Placing the 12 tones around a circle is an effective way to visualize the system. You can also see that placing fourths and fifths on the inside of the circle, a whole step apart, creates pentatonic pairs through all of the tonal centers. Let's look at the B-flat major scale again now, and you'll see where the pentatonic pairs are formed. There are 5 sets of these pentatonic pairs formed in every major scale. Now let's find the pentatonic pairs needed to play Perdido on the circle of fourths and fifths. You can see how they continue to cycle through the first 16 measures, making it impossible to get lost or to play anything that doesn't sound good. Here are the pentatonic pairs on the staff in Perdido. I'm going to play through the first 8 measures with the pairs, then stretch out a little bit in the second 8 measures. I'll also let you hear how the pentatonic pairs guide me through the bridge. You'll learn this in lesson 5.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
You can see how easy it is to hear and play the changes with these pentatonic pairs. In the final part of this overview, I'll show you how the pentatonic pairs are developed into some full-blown bebop in a half a dozen or so steps. In step number 1, the pentatonic pairs, introduced in the free lesson, provides the basic jazz vocabulary for the Perdido chord changes.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
In step number 2, when the major third is added to the pentatonic pairs in lesson 1, more color is created in the vocabulary.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
In step number 3, pentatonic pairs are embellished and connected with chromatics. This is how the bebop scale was born.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
In step number 4, the pentatonic pairs set up some of the most important jazz licks in bebop on the flat 7th of the dominant chord. When you play the notes of a major 7th or a major pentatonic scale off of that flat 7th, hey, you're in bebop heaven. If you don't believe me, listen to Charlie Parker.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
In step number 5, the flat 7 is used as an ideal starting note for a variety of traditional diminished licks and patterns. This is a no-brainer when you know your diminished scales.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
In step number 6, the flat 7 setup is moved up the notes of the diminished chord or the diminished ladder to create many of the licks you hear played on altered chords and substitute chords.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
When you have worked through the entire JazzEveryone language system, without question you'll be able to integrate these chords and scales into your playing in a much more effective way. To help organize the JazzEveryone materials into a more cohesive system for your practice routines, I've created a comprehensive curriculum overview with learning tracks that you can find in the right-hand column right there. Now is the time to start that free lesson. Good luck, my friend!